Well, let's begin with China. It's released details of its controversial new security law for Hong Kong. We knew this was coming, but details of the legislation were only published after it came into effect. So we now know that the crimes of secession, terrorism and subversion will be punished with up to life in prison. Companies or groups which violate the law will be fined and could have their operations suspended. China's also setting up a national security agency in Hong Kong. Beijing is certainly keen to avoid scenes like this from last year's protests, and it's called the new legislation a sword hanging over the heads of those who threaten national security. Critics see it as an effort to erode Hong Kong's way of life, including many of its freedoms. And the pro-democracy campaigner Joshua Wong described it this way: end of Hong Kong, beginning of reign of terror. Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie Lam, doesn't agree.
The question of how long we could tolerate such a gaping hole in national security has to be asked and answered. For those foreign governments or politicians raising objections to the legislation, one could only lament the double standards they are adopting.
This is all happening in the context of 1997. That's when Hong Kong was handed back to China from British control, and it began life under an agreement widely known as One Country, Two Systems. This protects certain freedoms in Hong Kong that don't exist in mainland China. Until now, at least. Here's more from the BBC's Stephen McDonnell in Beijing.
Here in the Chinese capital, behind closed doors, standing committee delegates have rubber-stamped through this new law without a dissenting voice. For China's leader, Xi Jinping, whatever the promises made at the time of handover, these Western notions of free speech, of liberty, have essentially poisoned Hong Kong. He doesn't care that this new law will be seen by some as changing that place forever, because that's what he wants. To drag that rebellious city back into the arms of the motherland, whether its residents like it or not.
Next, this is Howard Zhang from BBC Chinese with more detail on the new legislation.
In many ways, almost every aspect of Hong Kong life will change from now on. Even its non-violent acts can be considered to breach national security, as well as foreign media and the behavior of foreign media organizations.
Well, already in response, Hong Kong activists have deleted social media profiles, have closed down some campaign groups. Here's the reaction of Jimmy Lai. He's one of the most vocal anti-government critics, and he's the founder of Hong Kong's biggest tabloid newspaper, Apple Daily.
It spells the death knell of Hong Kong. The most tragic thing is for the youth. I'm 72. I don't have much time left, to face a place without the rule of law. But those young people, they have to face a future without the protection of rule of law.
Well, here's the other side of the argument. These are pro-Beijing supporters who gathered in front of Hong Kong's government headquarters to celebrate the new law. Let's hear from one of those in support. Nixie Lam is a former district councillor.
What happens in Hong Kong since last year is an uncontrollable waves of terrorism going on, riots, and so-called democracy movement. It does not affect anything that related to that you cannot have like freedom of assembly, anything like that. You can still go on. You can still apply with the Hong Kong police, and then they can approve and things like that. So it does not stop you from having all those.
Well, as China knew it would, this has prompted an international outcry. NATO, the UK and Japan have all condemned the law, so has the EU.
The new legislation does not conform with Hong Kong's basic law, nor with China's international commitments, both in terms of adoption procedure and acceptance. So we're very clear on that topic. That is, for us, very critical, and we're very seriously concerned about it.
The US has also issued a condemnation and, as it warned that it would, has started to revoke Hong Kong's special trade status. The White House said in this statement, as Beijing now treats Hong Kong as one country, one system, so must the United States. Well, if you want more on this story, we've taken a comprehensive look at it, which you can find if you search Hong Kong's new security law on the BBC News YouTube channel.